Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillah. Thank you all for joining me on this presentation of the Quran and its tafsir, its commentary. This is in our Friday night halaqah with the local community here in Toronto being live streamed as we speak. So I am going to share my screen with you. And on this screen, I have a presentation regarding Surah Al-Baqarah and the verses that we want to deal with today. So let me start this as a presentation, as a slideshow, and from the beginning. Okay, so here we are. Creation of the world. We're looking at Surah Al-Baqarah, the second chapter of the Quran, the 21st verse to the 29th verse. So these verses deal with the creation of the world. We need to see where this fits within the larger discourse that we have been conducting over the last couple of weeks. So here it is. Verses 1 to 20 of this chapter dealt with approaches to the Quran as we summarized it in our own way last week. And now today we're dealing with verses 21 to 29, dealing with the creation of the world. And just to put that in perspective again, that is our focus for tonight. It's the verses 21 to 29 of Surah Al-Baqarah that deal with the creation of the world. So to continue, verse number 21, I will try to read it from the Arabic text, and those who are able to follow will follow from the Arabic text. And below that, you see the transliteration. You can follow from that as well. And then we'll look at the English translation. Now, if you are looking at the transliteration, then let me point out again, since this may be new for many people, that the bar over the vowel is an indication that that vowel should be stretched. So the first two letters, Y and A, the A has a bar on it. It means that it's a long A. So yeah, and so on. Okay, so it usually occurs either over the A or the I or the U, in which case it is always stretched. Notice that where the bar occurs over the I, as in the word 1, 2, 3, 4, and the fifth word in, the I occurs at the end there, but the dot, it doesn't appear on the I. A bar replaces that dot. That's academic standard. That's how they do it when they want to transliterate from the Arabic into using English letters to spell the Arabic words. So let me begin then by reading this in the Arabic. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا أيها الناس اعبدوا ربكم الذي خلقكم والذين من قبلكم لعلكم تتقون. Let me pay some closer attention to the transliteration and read it with you from the transliteration so that any anomalies or unusual features may be pointed out. Ya ayyuhan nas. You see right there, the N seems to start something there, which is unusual in English. It's not going to happen in English like that, just the N by itself. So the reason they have done it like this is because the vowel is borrowed from ayyuha. So instead of an-nas, we are saying ya ayyuhan nas, ya ayyuhan nas u'budu rabbakum alladhi khalaqakum walladhina min qablikum la'allakum tattaqun. Okay, so now the English translation. O mankind, worship your Lord who created you and those who were before you so that you may be God-wary. This word God-wary here, used in the English translation here, is very unusual. In fact, I had not seen it before. The first time I saw it was when I was trying to prepare for this presentation today. By the way, this text translation and transliteration are all thanks to the website alquran.info. So it's not wrong, God-wary. It's just that I hadn't seen it before. It means those who are conscious of they're aware of God, those who are aware of God, or almost like those who fear God. So Allah is appealing to humankind and saying, worship your Lord who created you and those who are before you so that you may be conscious of God, so that you may be have taqwa. لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ. You may recall that seeing that we're not far away from Ramadan, in Ramadan we're discussing the objective of fasting, and we said that fasting was revealed, as the Quran itself says in the same chapter, the 183rd verse, لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ. So you see that there are certain common themes that run throughout the surah, and features that show that the surah is a comprehensive whole. And this is one of them, this word, لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ, this purpose, so that you may achieve taqwa. This now is shown at the beginning of the chapter here, because we're still close to the beginning, and it will occur towards the middle as well. Let's analyze it more carefully. O mankind. So Allah is addressing all humankind, and He's saying, worship your Lord who created you and created those who are before you as well, so that you may be God conscious. Now, the Mufassirun, the classical commentators on the Quran, discussed the structure of this verse, and they asked, when it says at the end, لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ, so that you may be God conscious, is it saying that God created you so that you may be God conscious, or that you should worship God so that you become God conscious? Both possibilities are there present in the Arabic, but the classical commentators on the Quran took the view that everyone is programmed to be as they are. Some people for Jannah, some people for Jahannam, some people are programmed to worship God, some people are programmed not to worship God, and it is just like that. They don't use the word program, but they use words like qadr and so on, that they're predetermined to be one or the other. So given that view, they shy away from the possibility that God created us in order for us to be God conscious, because from their point of view, God created some of us to be God conscious and some other people to reject God, which is a weird conclusion for them to reach. But nonetheless, this was very common in the Middle Ages, because given the categories of thought that was available to the classical Mufassirin, this is the best that they could have done. They wanted to defend the honor and the power and glory and might of Allah Azza wa Jal, even to the detriment of asserting human freedom. And of course, what goes with that human freedom is human responsibility. So they will keep attesting to the human responsibility, and to a certain extent, they will attest to human freedom as well, especially if somebody approaches them and says, Sheikh, I did this wrong, but I couldn't help it. That was the qadr of Allah. At that point, they would say, no, it is not the qadr of Allah. You chose it yourself. But when it comes to a verse like this, they would shy away from that, because in theory, they have the idea that God predetermined everyone to be as they are, some to worship, some to turn away. But given our general view today, that it seems wrong to think that God programmed non-believers to be non-believers and then to enter hell as a result, we would say that God actually is saying in this verse, worship your Lord so that you may develop more consciousness. Just like He's saying that you should fast, so that through the fasting you will also get more conscious of God. So worship God so you become more God conscious. Observe fast so that you become more conscious of your Lord. So I'm going to move on then. 22. So here's the verse that we will read first in the Arabic. الذي جعل لكم الأرض فراشا والسماء بناء وأنزل من السماء ماء فأخرج به من الثمرات رزقا لكم فلا تجعلوا لله أندادا وأنتم تعلمون. Now, let me read it one more time, but this time, instead of ending with the an as I have done, that comes before the wow, I'll assimilate that sound. So it will go like this. الذي جعل لكم الأرض فراشا والسماء بناء وأنزل من السماء ماء فأخرج به من الثمرات رزقا لكم فلا تجعلوا لله أندادا وأنتم تعلمون. So see what I've done there? Every time when the wow occurs after the N sound, I have assimilated that into the wow. So instead of saying firashan, was-sama. I said firashan was-sama, and so on. And we've done the same thing with the lam. So there are 5 letters in the Arabic alphabet, which if they come after what is called the noon of tanween, then we assimilate the noon of tanween into that next letter. So we can remember those letters. Actually, there are 6 letters now I come to think of it. Yeah. And you can remember them by the word that was coined, a non-word that was coined just as a mnemonic device to help us to remember. So the word is yarmalun, yarmalun. So ya, ra, mim, lam, wow, and noon. So if any one of these 6 letters occur after the noon of tanween, then the noon of tanween gets assimilated into that next letter. So you see it happening with the lam as well, where we had rizqan lakum, rizqan, but we're not going to say rizqan lakum, we're going to say rizqal lakum, rizqal lakum. So why does this happen? It happens because the noon and these other letters are, well, noon is one of them too, as we said, yarmalun. So it's noon plus 5 other letters. That's how 5 is in my mind. So the noon and these 5 other letters are pronounced from basically the same position in the mouth. So when the tongue is already there to pronounce rizqan, then you would have to kind of pause, stop, and then pronounce the next letter, which in this case is a lam, or it could have been wow. So instead of having to pause and restart, the reciters of the Quran have adopted this strategy of assimilating the noon of tanween into the next letter. So that's how we get rizqallakum, rizqallakum. Okay, so let's look at the transliteration and try to read it from that and see if we have to point out anything that might be troublesome there. الذي جعل لكم الأرض فراشا. So here we're saying when we are pronouncing it in the Arabic, what we'll do, we'll say فراشا والسماء بناء وأنزل من السماء ماء. This time we're keeping the N sound, ماء, because why? The fa is not one of those letters that form the phrase yarmalun. So فراشا والسماء بناء وأنزل من السماء ماء فأخرج به من الثمرات رزقا لكم. And here we're going to do it رزقا لكم instead of رزقا لكم. رزقا لكم فلا تجعلوا لله أندادا وأنتم تعلمون. So what does it mean? Translation. He who made the earth a place of repose for you, and the sky a canopy, and he sends down water from the sky, and with it he brings forth crops for your sustenance. So do not set up equals to Allah while you know. So this is very clear. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created the earth as a place in which we can easily dwell, and the sky is there over us, at least in appearance, like if it's a canopy. So it gives us that sense of comfort at night, as if we're under a large dome. And he sends down the water from the sky, and with it he brings forth the crops that is a source of sustenance for us. So after all of this, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, do not set up equals to Allah while you know. So we should give thanks to Allah for all of the benefits we have, and not give that credit to anyone else. So I'll move on to the next verse, which is 23, I believe. وإن كنتم في ريب مما نزلنا على عبدنا فأتوا بسورة من مثله وادعوا شهداءكم من دون الله إن كنتم صادقين. So let me read that from the English transliteration and see if anything needs to be pointed out. وَإِن كُنْتُمْ فِي رَيْبٍ. Now it says رَيْبٍ and then mimma. Now, remember Yarmalun, right? So is one of those letters in Yarmalun. So we're going to say, instead of raibin mimma, we're going to say raibim mimma nazalna ala abdina fa'atu bi suratin min. So we're going to join them together by saying suratim min. That N gets pronounced as an M. So instead of suratin mim, suratim mim, مثله وادعوا شهداءكم من دون الله إن كنتم صادقين. Translation. And if you are in doubt concerning what we have sent down to our servant, then bring a surah like it and invoke your helpers besides Allah, should you be truthful. So what this is saying to the non-believers is that now, if you are in doubt regarding the Quran that we are revealing to our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, then bring a surah like it. And like bring forth a surah and say, okay, like this is similar. So what's the point here? The point is that if you're saying that the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, invented this Quran on his own, then basically you're saying that it is possible for a human being to do something like this. So the Quran is saying, okay, if you think that's possible, go ahead. Show that it can be done. Bring a surah like the surahs of the Quran. And call your witnesses besides Allah. Like leave Allah alone out of this. You go call your witnesses, if indeed you should be truthful. So those persons should be able to come forward and say, yes, this is a surah like the surahs of the Quran. But in fact, as the Quran will now point out in the 24th verse, and I'm going to go on to that very quickly, you will not be able to do it. So let me move on to that, and we will see. So the 24th verse, فَإِن لَمْ تَفْعَلُوا وَلَن تَفْعَلُوا فَاتَّقُوا النَّارَ الَّتِي وَقُودُهَا النَّاسُ وَالْحِجَارَةُ وَأُعِدَّتْ لِلْكَافِرِينَ. I'll read it from the English transliteration to see what needs to be explained there. In lam, now la we said is in yarmalun. So you hear the L sound in yarmalun. So that L sound, when it follows the N sound, makes it such that we have to assimilate the two. So instead of saying fa'in lam, we're going to say fa'illam, as if the lam is doubled there, as if the L sound is doubled, and the N sound is sunk into that doubling. So فَإِلَّمْ تَفْعَلُوا وَلَن تَفْعَلُوا. See, now we're saying the lan, N is distinct because ta is not in that word yarmalun, right? Just remember that word yarmalun. So ta is not there. So the T sound is not in yarmalun. So in that case, we keep the N sound. وَلَن تَفْعَلُوا فَاتَّقُوا النَّارَ الَّتِي وَقُودُهَا النَّاسُ وَالْحِجَارَةُ. Now here, if I'm pausing, I say hijara, because that word hijaratu, hijaratu, that's called, that ta sound is called ta marbuta. That ta marbuta in Arabic is such that if we are pronouncing it at the end of a word and we're pausing after that pronunciation of that letter, then we pronounce it as an H sound, as a ha. So in Arabic, you will see that the ta marbuta is basically the ha shape with two dots on top of it. So if we are pausing there, we're going to pronounce it like a ha sound. So wal hijara. But if we are continuing, wal hijaratu u'iddat lil kafirin. So let's read the English translation. And if you do not, and you will not, then beware the fire whose fuel will be humans and stones prepared for the faithless. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying here to the non-believers who doubt the divine origin of the Quran, if you have any doubt regarding what Allah is revealing to his servant, that is our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, then bring a surah like it and then call your witnesses to say, okay, this has been met. But if you do not, and then you will not. If you do not, and you will not, then beware the fire whose fuel will be humans and stones prepared for the faithless. Now, why is the fire said to be, the fuel of it is human and stones? Well, we know that the fire will be lit. Obviously, it has some other fuel that's keeping it lit. And then human beings will be thrown into it. So why does Allah say that the human beings themselves will be fuel for the fire? Well, this is what is called hyperbole in rhetoric. It's a way of registering the point more graphically and with greater emphasis. So instead of saying that human beings will be thrown to burn in the fire, the Quran here is saying that the human beings themselves will become the fuel of the fire. So we have to imagine then that the human beings will be so ignited by that fire, that they themselves become the fuel of the fire. Something like this. To give it a greater degree of emphasis, the Quran is using the rhetorical device of what is called hyperbole, or simply in English, it'll be exaggeration. Then not only humans will be the fuel, but also the stones. Why mention the stones? Because these are not like ordinary stones. It might be, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best, but sometimes, stones can become very hot. So if the stone is in the fire, the stone itself will become very hot. But what seems to be the point here is that the pagans who were denying the Quran, at the same time, they were worshipping idols that are carved out of stones. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling them that their idols will also be thrown into the fire. And those idols will also become the fuel of the fire. So here too, the Quran is using that graphic imagery and hyperbole to let them know that their idols that are carved out of stones will not be able to save them from the fire, because they will be along with them in the same fire burning as well. Now it says prepared for the faithless, but as you know, last week we said kafirin does not only mean faithless. In this context, it is referring to those persons who vehemently opposed the message of the Quran and opposed the nascent Islamic community. And by this time, they were coming to fight against the Muslim community in one battle after another. First at the Battle of Badr, then the Battle of Uhud, and eventually the Battle of the Trench. So they are not just simply people who lack faith, but they are people who actively denied the faith. So in the future, inshallah, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala teaches me more of the Arabic language, and if time permits, and I do my distinctive translation of the Quran, I will be sure to make sure that when we're talking about kafirin, in that sense in which we mean the ones who vehemently oppose the message of the faith, then we'll be sure to make sure to have that reflected in the English translation. Otherwise, our youth may be reading some English translations of the Quran, and they may get the wrong impression, and then they think all non-Muslims are, kafirin, and then there is a kind of dichotomy in our thinking where we're thinking us versus them, and we're trying to see the world as in a black and white Muslim non-Muslim type of situation. But we need to see that there are some people in the middle who are neutral, and then there are some people who are believers on the one hand, and on the other hand, there are those who are vehemently opposed to the belief. Okay, so I move on then. 25. We're getting close now to the end, because we have only about 4 verses to follow after this one, and then we can get to your comments and your questions. Okay, so 25, this verse is a little bit long, so let's take it slowly and pay careful attention, reading from the Arabic at the top. وَبَشِّرِ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ أَنَّ لَهُمْ جَنَّاتٍ تَجْرِي مِنْ تَحْتِهَا الْأَنْهَارُ كُلَّمَا رُزِقُوا مِنْهَا مِنْ ثَمَرَةٍ رِزْقًا. You see what I've done there? I said ثَمَرَةٍ رِزْقًا. What did I do with the R? I doubled it, even though there's no marker showing that the R should be doubled, but we know the rule which says that the letters that spell the word yarmalun, when they follow the noon of tanween, so thamaratin, there is a noon, there is an N sound at that end. Thamaratin, that's noon of tanween, and then the next letter is ra, so we're going to double the ra. Min thamaratir rizqan, qalu hadha alladhi ruziqna min qabl. وَأُتُوا بِهِ مُتَشَابِهًا وَلَهُمْ فِيهَا أَزْوَاجٌ مُطَهَّرَةٌ وَهُمْ فِيهَا خَالِدُونَ. So we had the same thing there with azwajun, and so it ends with the N sound, and then the next letter is mim, M sound, and yarmalun. You can hear the M sound in yarmalun. So yarmalun. So now we're going to assimilate those 2 words together and say azwajum mutahhara. So we double the M and the N gets lost. Wahum fiha khalidun. Okay, let's read from the English transliteration. وَبَشِّرِ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ أَنَّ لَهُمْ جَنَّاتٍ تَجْرِي مِنْ تَحْتِهَا الْأَنْهَارُ كُلَّمَا رُزِقُوا مِنْهَا مِنْ ثَمَرَةٍ رِزْقًا قالوا هذا الذي رزقنا من قبل وأتوا به متشابها. And now here, because I stop in the Arabic, I'm saying mutashabiha. So when we have that an sound at the end and we're stopping, we make it as if it's a long A. There's no bar on that A to suggest that it's long. But when we drop the end, because we're stopping there, I'm pausing for breath, we say mutashabiha. Mutashabiha. But if we're continuing, we say mutashabihan walahum. But now we have to double the wa sound, the W sound. So if we're continuing, mutashabihan walahum fiha azwajum mutahhara. Here too, I've said mutahhara. But if you want to continue, mutahharatun wahum fiha khalidun. Okay, translation. And give good news to those who have faith and do righteous deeds, that for them shall be gardens with streams running in them. Whenever they are provided with their fruit for nourishment, they will say, "This is what we were provided before." And they were given something resembling it. In it, there will be chaste mates for them, and they will remain in it forever. So Allah is saying then, give good tidings, to give good news to those who have faith and they do righteous deeds. You notice that righteous deeds often in the Quran is paired along with faith, because from the Quranic point of view, if you have faith, you should produce righteous deeds. It's kind of like odd that somebody will say, I believe, but they're not producing any righteous deeds. So do good deeds. So give good news to those who have faith and do righteous deeds, for that for them shall be gardens with streams running in them. The description of the gardens of paradise are given in such a way that academic scholars will say that this would appeal to people at the time. People in the desert, harsh arrangement, the harsh environment of Arabia would like to think that comfort and joy lies in such a description. Like if you are in a garden and the water is not only around you, but it's even under you. Like, if you think of living on the water itself. So when you want water, you don't have to go so very far. You just dip from right underneath you. So you're in a garden and the water is running underneath the garden. Not only is it irrigating the garden, but it is within your reach whenever you want to drink. So the streams running in them. In fact, the Arabic says min tahtiha al-anhar. Under it are the gardens. Whenever they are provided with their fruit for nourishment, they will say, this is what we were provided before. So that means that when people are in Jannah and they're eating the fruits of Jannah, they will say, this is what we used to eat before. So, if we used to eat mangoes, we'll get mangoes. So you're looking at the mango. But the Quran is saying, وَأُتُوا بِهِ مُتَشَابِهًا. They've been given something that resembles what they used to eat. So you look at it, it looks like mango, you're eating it, but the Mufassirun say that the taste will be beyond this world. So it looks like the mango of this world, but the taste will be, better than our Pakistani mangoes, for example. That is something we have to experience, and we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to get us there. In addition to that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in there, this is the last couple of lines, and in it there will be chaste mates for them, and they will remain in it forever. So the Mufassirun say that if somebody was not married in this world, they will get married in that life, and if somebody had lost their spouse, then they will be united with their spouse, and so on. And our spouses in the life hereafter will be purified for us, as we will be purified for them. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala take us there and not deprive us of all of this benefit and ni'am and bounties from Him. So I'll move on. You probably have questions, and I'll come back to your questions, but let's finish the reading at least, and some brief comments. So now we're at verse number 26. إن الله لا يستحيي أن يضرب مثلا ما بعوضة فما فوقها فأما الذين آمنوا فيعلمون أنه الحق من ربهم وأما الذين كفروا فيقولون ماذا أراد الله بهذا مثلا يضل به كثيرا ويهدي به كثيرا وما يضل به إلا الفاسقين. So I stopped there at kathira, kathira, in where there is a pause in that line, that last line. But if I was continuing, I would say kathiran wa ma yudillu bihi illa al-fasiqin. So you see the same Yarmalun principle is working here throughout. We've had so many examples of that in this short reading today. So let's look at the transliteration. Inna Allah la yastahyi an yadriba. So here, Yarmalun starts with the ya. See that with the y sound. So the n sound has to be assimilated into that. So an yadriba. أن يضرب مثلا ما بعوضة فما فوقها فأما الذين آمنوا فيعلمون أنه الحق من ربهم وأما الذين كفروا فيقولون ماذا أراد الله بهذا مثلا. So I'm saying مثلا because I'm pausing. So I'm making that A sound long. But if I'm continuing, مثلا يضل به كثيرا ويهدي به كثيرا وما يضل به إلا الفاسقين. And when I say fasiqin, notice I'm dropping that last A, because when we're stopping, we're going to drop the last short vowel at the end. Okay, translation. Indeed, Allah is not ashamed to draw a parable, whether it is that of a gnat, something like a mosquito, a very small insect, or something above it, something bigger than that. As for those who have faith, they know it is the truth from their Lord. And as for the faithless, they say, what did Allah mean by this parable? Thereby, he leads many astray, and thereby he guides many. And he leads no one astray thereby except the transgressors. And so Allah is saying, look, Allah is giving you examples. He is, remember the example of the person who was a hypocrite that we discussed last week, how he lights a fire, and then when he has the light from the fire, he can walk a little bit. Then, or when the lightning strikes, he he sees a little bit of light. He walks for a step. Then the light is gone away in a flash. Then he's stuck there. He can't move forward because he's in complete darkness. So Allah is using parables. He's giving examples, and he's saying that he's not ashamed to draw parables and give examples. Whether it is something small like an insect, a little insect like a fly, or it is something over and above that, larger than that. And here is the result. As for those who have faith, they know that it is the truth from their Lord. So they accept it. Remember, we said that in the previous 20 verses, we were looking at attitudes towards the Quran. So one attitude towards the Quran is that of faith. The faithful believers will say, yes, this is from our Lord. We believe in it. We have no doubt in it. As for those who disbelieve, they're going to say, what does Allah mean by this parable? They're going to make mockery of it. It's not only that they're asking, what does it mean? They're going to make mockery of it. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that thereby he leads many, and thereby he guides many. Thereby he leads many astray, and thereby he guides many. So as for it, it's not that he took the non-believing person and throw the non-believing person into dalala and deviation and misguidance. It is the non-believing person who, by his response or her response towards the Quran, that negative response that we talked about last week, because of that negative response, they are going further and further into dalala and deviation. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is now switching to the divine side of this analysis and saying that Allah is misleading the person. Allah is leading the person astray. But again, if you recall our detailed discussion last week, this does not mean that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is unjust or unfair to anyone. It means that this person is going about life picking misguidance. So the other side of that is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is leading him further into his misguidance. Allah is leading him along in the misguidance that he chooses. So let's say one person is choosing to go to the masjid, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is bringing him to the masjid. Another person is choosing to go away from the masjid, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is leading him away from the masjid. Or, to put it in a different way, somebody chooses to go into a bad place, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is taking him into that bad place. So in a way, we can say that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is cooperating with the person and helping that person to carry out their wishes, whether the wishes are good or bad. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is testing us according to our wishes, our wills, our intentions, our niyyah, our irada, our mashi'ah. And whatever mashi'ah or irada or intention, niyyah that we have, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is helping us to fulfill that. He is giving us the life, the health, and the strength, the movement of our bodies, and everything to carry out those. So when we do it, we can say that Allah did this through us, or that we did it ourselves. So in a similar way, when the non-believer is choosing misguidance, making fun of the revelation from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that person is misguiding himself or herself. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is looking at it from the divine side and saying that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is misleading him. But we should not get the wrong impression and think that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is spitefully misleading some people, and then he's going to punish them due to their being misled. No, it's not that Allah will be unjust to anybody. So we shouldn't explain it in that way. So the way to explain it, we have already then spent a long time last week on, and you know the point now. And then here is the conclusion, and the last two lines. And he leads no one astray except the transgressors. So it's the transgressors who can be said to be led astray. And if we say that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala led them astray, that wouldn't be wrong. But at the same time, we should know that they are the ones who are transgressing, and they are leading themselves astray through their transgression. Okay, now the 27th verse, and we're getting here to the end, only two more to go after this one. So الذين ينقضون عهد الله من بعد ميثاقه ويقطعون ما أمر الله به أن يوصل ويفسدون في الأرض أولئك هم الخاسرون. Let me look at the English transliteration. الذين ينقضون عهد الله من بعد. So instead of min ba'di, I'm saying mim ba'di. This is another rule. That when the noon of tanween or any noon, it's not noon of tanween this time, it's the noon, the regular noon, min ba'di, it's followed by a ba. So we assimilate the noon sound into the ba. So mim ba'di mithaqi wa yaqta'una ma amara Allahu bihi an yusala wa yufsiduna fil ard. Ulaika humul khasirun. And again, I dropped the A at the end, the last short vowel at the end when I'm stopping. So translation, those who break the covenant made with Allah after having pledged it solemnly and sever what Allah has commanded to be joined and cause corruption on the earth, it is they who are the losers. Now you see the dash that starts the translation where there's a dash and then it says those who break the covenant. So that means it's continuing from the previous verse. And what did the previous verse says? They are the losers, they are the khasirun. And now it's specified, well, they're the khasirun now. Let me go back, the fasikun previously. Yes, I'm going back to the previous slide here, you see. وَمَا يُدِلُّ بِهِ إِلَّا الْفَاسِقِينَ. It is only the fasiqeen, the transgressors, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is misleading. So who are the transgressors? Now in the 27th verse, back to the page where we were. Now, it is being specified who are these transgressors. They are those who break the covenant made with Allah after having pledged it solemnly and sever what Allah has commanded to be joined, and they cause corruption on the earth. It is they who are the losers. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made a covenant with all human beings that we are going to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sincerely, and we are going to stay away from corrupting the earth. But instead of keeping that covenant, that agreement with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there are some people who break that covenant after having made it with Allah. So from Allah's point of view, all of us human beings, we are part of that covenant with Allah, and He created us in a natural way to maintain that covenant. And if we break it, we're breaking it after having ratified the covenant with Allah previously. And we are severing that which Allah caused to be joined, and we are causing corruption on the earth. So if we fit that description, those are the persons who are said to be the losers. Those are the ones who are said to be the transgressors. And you see here, we have a return to that idea about causing corruption. We saw earlier in the verse, in our previous discussions, that the munafiqun, the hypocrites, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَيُفْسِدُونَ فِي الْأَرْضِ, they cause corruption on the earth, fasad in Arabic. And here too, we are being told that these transgressors are the ones who cause corruption on the earth. And we will see in what we have to describe next week in our discussion about the creation of human beings, that this idea about human beings causing corruption appears there again, so that Allah can warn us against falling into that error. And this means that fasad or corruption is one of the big sins in the sight of Allah Azza wa Jal. And when groups of young men, they form groups and they said they're going to enact legislation of Allah on earth, and they cause corruption on the earth. Actually, they cause fasad, they cause chaos, they cause upheavals, and they do acts of terrorism. All of that, it comes under fasad. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide them and save the rest of our youth from falling into such gangs and groups where they will commit fasad and shed blood and corrupt the earth. All right, so we go into verse number 28, and here Allah is saying, كيف تكفرون بالله وكنتم أمواتا فأحياكم ثم يميتكم ثم يحييكم ثم إليه ترجعون. So let me read the English transliteration. كيف تكفرون بالله وكنتم أمواتا فأحياكم ثم يميتكم ثم يحييكم ثم إليه ترجعون. And again, I've dropped the A at the end. Okay, translation. How can you be unfaithful to Allah, seeing that you were lifeless and He gave you life? Then He will make you die, and then He shall bring you to life, and then you will be brought back to Him. So Allah is asking you, how can you then be unfaithful to Allah? Here, the unfaithful is takfurun. Takfurun is the same word from which we have kufr, which means disbelief. But here it is in the meaning of being ungrateful. And in the Quran, the same word is used for both. One, for disbelief, and two, for being ungrateful to Allah Azza wa Jal. So Allah is asking us, how can you be ungrateful to Allah? Or as the translation here says, unfaithful to Allah, seeing that you were lifeless and He gave you life. And then He will make you die, and He shall bring you back to life again. And He will bring you back to Him. Ilayhi turja'un. You're going to return to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the end. So what's the point of disbelieving in Him now? We should actually believe in Him, seeing that He has done all of these favors for us, giving us life in the first place. And He will bring us back to life again and return us to Him. So we better believe in Him now, because that's our ultimate destiny. And then finally, the last verse that we want to cover today. هو الذي خلق لكم ما في الأرض جميعا ثم استوى إلى السماء فسواهن سبع سماوات وهو بكل شيء عليم. Reading from the transliteration. هو الذي خلق لكم ما في الأرض جميعا ثم استوى إلى السماء فسواهن سبع سماوات. Now, if I'm pausing there, I say samawat. I'm dropping the in at the end. Samawat. But if I want to continue, samawat wa huwa bi kulli shay'in alim. And I'm saying alim, I'm dropping the un at the end. Now, this is difficult to explain to those who are not following from the Arabic letters. But those who are following from the Arabic letters, you can see that they are just little markers over the last letter of the Arabic alphabet in that word, which is meme. So we're ending with the meme. So alim, alim, and we're not saying alimun. But if we were continuing and reading into another word, we would say alimun, and then we continue into the other word. Translation. It is He who created for you all that is in the earth. Then He turned to the heaven and fashioned it into 7 heavens, and He has knowledge of all things. So Allah created for you all that is in the earth. Then He turned to the heaven and He fashioned it into 7 heavens. We shouldn't have the idea of Allah looking this way and then looking the other way. This turning towards the heaven is not as if somebody is there physically facing one way and then turning in the other direction. This is you can say, the direction of will. So Allah directed His will towards the earth, and His will was to create the earth. And after that, or moreover, not necessarily after, because the Arabic word thumma does not necessarily mean after. It can mean more. It can mean moreover. So in addition to that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala turned to the heaven and fashioned it into 7 heavens, and He has knowledge of all things. So I'm going to end that discourse of the tafsir of this ayah, of these ayat at this point, but let me move forward just to give you perspective. So we said that what we covered up until last week were the first 20 verses, and these describe the approaches to the Quran. And then verses number 21 to 29, which we have done tonight, these are about the creation of the world. And where do we go next? The next chunk of verses that we're going to deal with, inshallah, next week, verses number 30 to 39, these are about the creation of humans. So Allah created the world, and He created humans to be in the world. So to put them all in line here, we can see that we dealt with approaches to the Quran as a kind of introduction to this long surah, and as a sort of introduction to the Quran as a whole. Allah is saying, okay, you're going to start reading this book. What attitude are you going to read with? Positive, negative, or wavering? Take the positive attitude. And now that you have that attitude, let's think about the creation of the world. And after the creation of the world, think about your own place in the world as human beings. Why did Allah create you and put you in this world? If we have people young people in this room who are around the ages of 10 to 15, this is about the time when you start asking yourself, why am I here in the world? Am I part of a bigger plan? What purpose was I made for? And so on. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us our purpose in this chapter, and especially so in the verses that are going to come next week, inshallah. We've already had an indication of that tonight in the verses that we studied, because Allah said, worship your Lord who created you and those before you, لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ, so that you may achieve that piety, that awareness of God. So I'm going to end it there, and I'm going to return to your discussion with you, and I would like to hear your questions, your comments. I'll keep this presentation on so that if your questions and comments have anything to do with this presentation, I can go back to the relevant page and try to answer your question for you. So I'm going to end the live stream at this point. Brothers and sisters who have been joining from around the world, thank you all for your patient listening, and thank you for joining. Next week, inshallah, same time, 9:30 Eastern Toronto time. Please join us again for a continuing discussion of Surah Al-Baqarah and the tafsir of it. Jazakumullah khairan. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect you all. Assalamu alaikum.